What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors sits down with one of daytime television's most outspoken hosts, only to have the conversation spiral into complete chaos? Today we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had Johnny Depp storming off The View set after a heated exchange with Joy Behar that left the entire studio in stunned silence. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how personal vendettas can destroy professional boundaries. Before we get into this wild story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about celebrities walking out of interviews. The morning started like any other at The View studio. Johnny Depp had agreed to appear on the show to discuss his latest film project, a passion piece he had been developing for years. The segment was supposed to be a light-hearted conversation about his return to independent cinema, but from the moment he walked onto that set, you could feel the tension crackling in the air. Whoopi Goldberg, serving as the show's moderator, welcomed Depp with her characteristic warmth. "Johnny, it's so good to have you here. We've been following your career for decades, and it's exciting to see you back on screen doing what you love most." Depp settled into his chair, that familiar crooked smile playing on his lips. "Thank you, Whoopi. It's always a pleasure to be here with you ladies. This project means everything to me. It's something I've been nurturing for almost a decade." Sarah Haynes jumped in next, her enthusiasm genuine and infectious. "The trailer looks absolutely incredible. Can you tell us about the character you're playing? It seems like such a departure from some of your more recent roles." "Well, Sarah, this character is actually very close to my heart," Depp began, his voice taking on that thoughtful tone his fans know so well. "He's a musician who's lost his way, struggling with addiction and trying to reconnect with his daughter. It's raw, it's honest, and it required me to dig deep into some personal experiences that weren't always comfortable to revisit." Sunny Hostin leaned forward, clearly intrigued. "That sounds incredibly vulnerable. As someone who's faced public scrutiny about personal struggles, how do you channel that into your performance without it becoming too overwhelming?" Depp's expression grew more serious. "That's a great question, Sunny. I think as artists, we have a responsibility to use our pain, our experiences, both good and bad, to create something meaningful. This character allowed me to explore themes of redemption and forgiveness in a way that felt authentic rather than performative." The conversation was flowing beautifully, each panelist engaging with genuine curiosity about Depp's craft and his journey as an actor. Alyssa Farah Griffin asked about his approach to method acting, while Ana Navarro inquired about working with the film's director. The atmosphere was collegial, professional, and exactly what a good interview should be. Then Joy Behar opened her mouth. "Johnny, I have to ask," she began, her voice carrying that sharp edge that regular viewers know all too well. "Given everything that's happened in your personal life over the past few years, do you really think you're the right person to be playing a character dealing with redemption? I mean, some people might say you haven't exactly redeemed yourself." The studio went dead silent. You could practically hear the other panelists' hearts stopping. Whoopi's eyes widened in disbelief, while Sarah looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. This wasn't the kind of question that had been discussed in the pre-interview, and everyone knew it. Depp's smile faded slowly, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "I'm sorry, Joy, but I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at." "Oh, I think you understand perfectly," Behar continued, leaning back in her chair with a smug expression. "We're all adults here, Johnny. We know about the lawsuits, the allegations, the very public breakdowns. Some people are saying you're trying to rehabilitate your image through this film, using your personal struggles as a marketing tool." The other panelists exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was supposed to be a promotional interview, not an ambush. Whoopi tried to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should focus on the actual film." But Behar wasn't finished. "No, Whoopi, I think this is important. Our viewers deserve honesty. Johnny, you've made millions of dollars playing characters who are charming rogues, pirates, and misfits. But when real life gets messy, when there are real consequences, you seem to disappear from the public eye until you need to promote something. Isn't that a little convenient?" Depp's composure was remarkable. but you could see the storm building behind his eyes. Joy, I came here to discuss my work, not to be subjected to what feels like a personal attack. I've been through legal proceedings. I've faced my challenges publicly, and I've never claimed to be perfect. Legal proceedings? Behar scoffed. Is that what we're calling it now? You sued your ex-wife for $50 million because she wrote an op-ed about domestic violence without even mentioning your name. That doesn't sound like someone who's learned from their mistakes. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Sunny Hostin looked mortified, while Anna Navarro was shaking her head in disbelief. This was crossing every line of professional courtesy, and everyone knew it. Depp's voice remained steady, but there was steel in it now. Joy, I understand you have opinions about my personal life, but I won't sit here and be lectured by someone who doesn't know me, doesn't know the facts, and seems more interested in creating drama than having a meaningful conversation. Drama? Behar's voice rose an octave. You want to talk about drama? How about the drama of your fans harassing your ex-wife online? How about the drama of you laughing about it in text messages? How about the drama of you making millions while she goes into hiding? That was the moment everything changed. Depp's carefully maintained composure cracked, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced the entire studio. You know what, Joy? I've spent years trying to rebuild my life, my career, and my relationships with my children. I've faced my demons, I've taken responsibility for my actions, and I've worked every single day to become a better person. But sitting here, listening to you twist facts and make assumptions about situations you know nothing about, I realize that some people are more interested in tearing others down than building anything meaningful. The camera captured every moment of this exchange, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi was frantically trying to regain control of the situation, while the other panelists sat in stunned silence, watching one of the most uncomfortable television moments in recent memory unfold before their eyes. But Joy Behar wasn't backing down. Instead, she doubled down with a vengeance that left everyone in the studio absolutely speechless. Oh, please, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Spare me the redemption speech, Johnny. You think because you won a court case that suddenly makes you the victim? You think because your fans cheered outside the courthouse that means you're vindicated? The truth is, you're sitting here promoting a movie about a man seeking redemption because you desperately need the public to believe you've changed, when really, you haven't learned anything at all. The other panelists were frozen in shock. This wasn't television anymore. This was a public execution disguised as an interview. Whoopi's face had gone completely pale, while Sarah Haynes looked like she might actually be sick. Even Anna Navarro, who never shied away from political confrontations, seemed stunned by the personal nature of Behar's attack. Depp's hands, which had been resting calmly on the armrests of his chair, slowly clenched into fists. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. You know what, Joy? I've sat through interviews where people have questioned my choices, my career, even my personal life. But what you're doing right now isn't journalism. It isn't even good television. It's cruelty disguised as righteousness. Cruelty! Behar's voice hit a pitch that made the studio microphones crackle. You want to talk about cruelty? How about the cruelty of dragging a woman through the mud in front of the entire world? How about the cruelty of your fans sending death threats to someone who was brave enough to speak her truth? How about the cruelty of you sitting here, acting like you're the wounded party, when you're the one with all the power? That's when Sunny Hostin finally found her voice. Joy, this is completely inappropriate. Johnny came here to discuss his film, not to be put on trial for his personal life. But Behar whirled on her colleague with fury. Inappropriate? What's inappropriate is giving a platform to someone who has used the legal system to silence women. What's inappropriate is pretending that winning a lawsuit means winning the moral argument. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to jump in, her voice shaking slightly. Joy, we all agreed before the show that we were going to focus on the artistic aspects of Johnny's work. Did we? Behar shot back. Because I don't remember agreeing to participate in a puff piece designed to rehabilitate someone's image. I thought we were supposed to ask real questions, hold people accountable. The studio was in complete chaos now. Whoopi was trying desperately to regain control, but Behar was on a rampage that seemed to have no end. Meanwhile, Depp sat there, his famous composure cracking more with each passing second. "You know what's really rich about all this?" Behar continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're sitting here talking about playing a character who's lost his way, who's struggling with addiction, who's trying to reconnect with his daughter. But in real life, when things got difficult, when your personal choices had consequences, you didn't face them with dignity. You turned it into a circus, you made it about revenge, and you let your fans turn it into a witch hunt." That was the moment Johnny Depp finally snapped. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the stunned studio. "That's enough," he said, his voice carrying a weight that silenced even Joy Behar. "I've spent years being called a wife-beater, a drug addict, a has-been actor desperately clinging to relevance. I've watched my children read lies about their father in the press. I've seen my life's work reduced to tabloid headlines and social media debates." The camera captured every nuance of his expression as he continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "But I won't sit here and be lectured about morality by someone who makes a living tearing people down on television. You want to know about cruelty, Joy? Cruelty is using your platform to kick someone when they're down. Cruelty is pretending that your personal vendetta is somehow noble. Cruelty is what you're doing right now." Behar's face was red with anger, but for the first time since the interview began, she seemed, momentarily, speechless. The other panelists were looking back and forth between them like spectators at a tennis match, uncertain whether to intervene or simply watch the carnage unfold. "And you know what the most pathetic part is?" Depp continued, his voice taking on a tone of almost pity. "You're doing this because you think it makes you look tough, like you're standing up for something important. But all you're really doing is showing everyone watching that you're more interested in scoring points than having an honest conversation. You're more interested in being right than being decent." The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras running, capturing every second of this unprecedented meltdown. Whoopi made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Johnny, Joy, maybe we should take a breath and—" "No, Whoopi," Depp interrupted, his eyes never leaving Behar's face. "I think Joy has made her position perfectly clear. She's not interested in discussing my work. She's not interested in having a conversation about art or redemption or any of the things that actually matter. She's interested in public humiliation disguised as moral superiority." Joy Behar finally found her voice again, and when she spoke, her tone was ice cold. "What I'm interested in, Johnny, is accountability, something you seem to be allergic to." "Accountability?" Depp's laugh was bitter and sharp. "I've been held accountable in every court of law, every tabloid, every social media platform on earth. I've been held accountable by my industry, my peers, and complete strangers who feel entitled to judge my entire life based on headlines they've read. But sitting here, listening to you, I realize that, for some people, no amount of accountability will ever be enough." The tension in the room was suffocating. Sarah Haynes looked like she was about to cry, while Anna Navarro was shaking her head in disbelief at how quickly things had spiraled out of control. Even the cameramen seemed uncomfortable, though they continued filming this train wreck of an interview. "You know what?" Behar stood up now too, matching Depp's energy with her own fury. "You're right about one thing. No amount of accountability will ever be enough for me, because I don't think you understand what you've done. I don't think you understand the message you've sent to women everywhere. I don't think you understand the damage you've caused." Depp's eyes narrowed, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. "And I don't think you understand that your righteous indignation is just another form of bullying. You're not fighting for justice, Joy. You're fighting for ratings." The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. The other panelists exchanged horrified looks, knowing that this had crossed every line of professional decorum and was heading towards something that couldn't be taken back. But the worst was yet to come. Joy Behar's face transformed into something absolutely terrifying. The mask of television professionalism had completely fallen away. revealing something raw and vicious underneath. "Ratings?" she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "You think this is about ratings? This is about the fact that you destroyed a woman's life and then had the audacity to play the victim. This is about the fact that you've spent years manipulating public opinion while hiding behind expensive lawyers and public relations teams." The studio felt like it was holding its breath. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch this nuclear meltdown unfold. Whoopi Goldberg looked absolutely mortified, her hands pressed against her face, as if she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Depp's composure finally shattered completely. "You want to talk about destroying lives?" he roared, his voice echoing through the studio. "You've made a career out of destroying people on television. You sit behind this desk every day, hiding behind the pretense of political commentary, while you tear apart anyone who doesn't fit your narrow worldview. You're not a journalist, Joy. You're a bully with a microphone." "How dare you!" Behar shrieked, pointing an accusatory finger at him. "How dare you come into our studio and try to turn this around on me? I'm not the one who sent lawyers after his ex-wife. I'm not the one who turned a domestic violence case into a public spectacle. I'm not the one who let his fans harass a woman into hiding." Ana Navarro finally found her voice, desperation clear in her tone. "Please, both of you, this needs to stop. We're on live television." But neither Depp nor Behar seemed to care anymore. This had become something primal, something that went far beyond television or publicity, or anything resembling professional conduct. "You know what your problem is, Joy?" Depp continued, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge. "You've convinced yourself that your cruelty is justified because you've wrapped it in the flag of social justice. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that you're just another person who gets off on watching others suffer, and you've found a way to make that socially acceptable." The words hit Behar like a physical blow. Her face went white, then red, then white again. When she spoke, her voice was barely controlled fury. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out of this studio right now." "Gladly," Depp replied, his voice dripping with contempt. "But before I go, let me say something to your viewers. They deserve better than this. They deserve hosts who can have difficult conversations without resorting to character assassination. They deserve better than watching someone use their personal vendetta as entertainment." Behar was practically vibrating with rage now. "Security!" she called out, her voice cracking. "Get him out of here now!" But Depp wasn't finished. As he started to walk toward the exit, he turned back one more time. "You know what the saddest part about all this is, Joy? You had a chance to have a real conversation about redemption, about second chances, about how people can change and grow. Instead, you chose to turn it into a public execution. That says everything anyone needs to know about who you really are." The other panelists were in complete shock. Sarah Haynes had tears in her eyes, while Sunny Hostin looked like she might actually be sick. Alyssa Farah Griffin was staring at her hands, clearly wishing she could disappear. Even Whoopi, who had seen everything in her decades in show business, looked stunned by the viciousness of what had just transpired. As security personnel appeared from the wings, Behar made one final, desperate attempt to have the last word. "That's right, run away," she called after him. "Just like you always do when things get difficult. Just like you did when your marriage fell apart. Just like you did when your career started crumbling. You're not a victim, Johnny. You're a coward." Depp stopped dead in his tracks. The entire studio went silent, waiting to see what would happen next. For a moment, it seemed like he might come back, might escalate this even further. But instead, he turned around slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury. "You know what, Joy?" he said, his voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear him. "You're right about one thing. I did run away when my marriage fell apart. I ran away from conflict, from responsibility, from the hard work of being a better person. But I came back. I faced my demons. I went to court. I told my truth under oath. I didn't hide behind a television show or a panel of enablers. I didn't try to destroy someone else to make myself feel better." The silence in the studio was deafening. Even Behar seemed to realize that she had pushed this too far, that this had crossed every line of human decency. But you, Depp continued, his voice growing stronger with each word, you're still running. You're running from the fact that you're not the moral crusader you pretend to be. You're running from the fact that you're just another person who gets their kicks from tearing others down. And worst of all, you're running from the fact that everything you've accused me of, everything you've tried to destroy me for, you're guilty of yourself. With that, he turned and walked out of the studio, leaving behind a panel of stunned women and an audience that had just witnessed one of the most brutal confrontations in television history. The cameras continued rolling as the remaining panelists sat in stunned silence. Joy Behar slumped back into her chair, her face pale and drawn. The righteous fury that had carried her through the confrontation was gone, replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like shame. Whoopi Goldberg, ever the professional, tried to salvage what was left of the show. "We'll be right back," she said weakly, but her voice lacked its usual authority. As the studio cut to commercial break, the aftermath of the confrontation settled over everyone like a toxic cloud. The other panelists avoided looking at Behar, while the crew members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something that would define their careers, something that would be talked about for years to come. But perhaps the most telling moment came during the commercial break, when the cameras were supposedly off. Joy Behar, the woman who had just spent 20 minutes tearing apart Johnny Depp with ruthless efficiency, sat quietly in her chair, staring at her hands. For the first time in the entire confrontation, she looked small, vulnerable, and utterly defeated. The great irony was that in her attempt to expose Johnny Depp as a bully and a coward, she had revealed herself to be exactly what she had accused him of being. And everyone watching, from the studio audience to the millions of viewers at home, could see it clearly. That's what happens when someone's need to be right becomes more important than their need to be decent. That's what happens when television hosts forget that the people they're interviewing are human beings, not punching bags for their personal frustrations. And that's what happens when professional journalism gets replaced by personal vendettas disguised as moral crusades. So, what do you think? Was Joy Behar justified in her harsh questioning, or did she cross the line into personal attack territory? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the most explosive celebrity confrontations in television history.